Best Available Podcast, Episode 8. It is the end of September. It's been a month and a half since we started this site, and the time has just flown by. That is crazy to me. That is September 28th. It's going to be October very soon. That is crazy. The time is just flying by. But this is Ryan, of course, joined by Matt. If you're watching the video version, you can see him right over there. But we have a jam-packed show for you today. We got some sports again that we're going to talk about. We got football, baseball, and you might get some other surprises throughout the show. So stay tuned for that. Matt, I was not a big fan of this past weekend. I had gotten used to the temperatures in the mid to high 60s, and then we got a couple high 70, low 80 days that kind of just threw me out of whack. But I looked at the weather forecast, and we're going to get back to that fall weather this week, which I'm very excited about.
Well, yeah, it was quite a tease early on with that fall weather, Ryan. But I will say we're not going to shake the warm temperatures just yet. Not going to bring up any climate debates, but it was 70 degrees on Christmas last year. So it's been balmy throughout the year. I feel like we live in like North Carolina now as opposed to New Jersey. Ryan, thought of this the other day, and I'm going to completely hijack the show right off the bat here. When was the last time we had snow? Like not like a coating, like an actual, like, oh, it snowed kind of thing. Because I was having this debate with my mom the other day.
Well, it's funny, by the way, that was one of the moms of the podcast.
Ooh.
That was Mrs. Waldis that you just saw through the door. So
that was Mrs. Waldis.
She's doing good.
Nice. See, when was the last time we had snow? I was thinking about that because I saw it in the movie the other day, and I'm like, almost forgot what it looked like.
Yeah, we really didn't have the big snowstorm last year. I mean, when we were at Monmouth, we seemed to get it a little more, but last year's the first year in a while, I'd say, that we didn't get like that one big. We didn't even get like a medium-sized snowstorm, if my memory serves me correctly. It was weird.
Well, I think the last snowstorm we got is the one that you almost had to go to Fairfield for junior year.
Yes.
But I'm jumping the gun on fall weather. To come back to your pumpkin spice and fall weather topic, Ryan, should be good. The October baseball is right on the horizon. We're going to talk about that, obviously. For sports fans out there, we have been absolutely spoiled because we have never in our lifetimes had this much sports going on at one time, because every league's trying to fit in something before the second wave of the coronavirus hits, right? So you had baseball, hockey, soccer, basketball, literally almost every sport, and now the NFL's back on. So September was just a wild ride. The first 2 weeks of October are probably going to be the last wild ride weeks we're going to have for quite some time before things start to die down. So sports fans, enjoy it, because after that, we really won't have much until college basketball tips off in November. So next couple of weeks are going to be the last of the wild ride weeks.
So Matt and I are committed to getting you a concise podcast eventually. Once again, we're going to try it today. Fingers crossed. We'll see if it works today. But we're going to jump into football. We got our slate of games here that we're going to talk about. It was a interesting kind of week. There's some interesting games. We're going to start with what was probably the biggest early game on the week 2 schedule, or the week 3 schedule, excuse me. And that was a battle of 2-0 teams. The only one that occurred on Sunday, of course, the Chiefs and the Ravens meet tonight on Monday Night Football, but the Rams and the Bills met yesterday in Buffalo. And it was an intriguing game. So number one, myself and Matt live in the Philadelphia market. We were initially supposed to get this game on Fox because the Eagles were on CBS, but at the last minute, somebody decided that it would be a better idea to switch to the 49ers and the Giants, which perturbed me immediately as soon as I woke up and saw the map. So that was not a good way to start my day. But I wish I was able to watch this because it seemed to be very entertaining from what I could gather. Bills got out to a pretty big lead, but Goff and the Rams, they charged back, and then Josh Allen, who's apparently in the MVP conversation, still he led them on a touchdown drive to end the fourth quarter, and the Bills improved to 3-0. Devin Singletary looked good on the ground. Josh Allen, he looked good. All right. I said
There it
it.
is.
I'm starting to buy in. He looked good. All right. He's doing some good things. I can admit
Love
when
to
I
hear
was
that.
wrong. But the Rams look good too. I think that this is a situation where we could talk about how impressive the Bills looked, and rightfully so. This is clearly a team that, as long as Josh Allen kind of maintains his progression from last year to this year, if he keeps playing like this, they're going to obviously be a dangerous team. But I think people need to accept, because there's somebody out there that says that the Rams are not a good team. We learned this through our group chat.
That take gave me a heart attack the other day hearing that.
I think people need to understand that this Rams team is not like they were last year. They're looking more like they did our senior year of college in 2018. The offense looks very high powered. They're doing a lot of things very well. I know the defense let up 35 points. That's clearly a work in progress. That's clearly not the strength, but they have pieces on that side that should give you some confidence. But what a game, Matt. Really, this was I went back and watched parts of it because, as I said, we couldn't watch it in real time, but that was a fun game to watch. Both of these teams, I think, are definitely going to be in the contending conversation as the months go on and we get into the colder months, the leaves fall off the trees. Both of these teams are going to be there at the end. So I think people need to accept that.
Yeah, so I was watching the New England game as you were probably watching your Birds yesterday. But this game, and I don't know if it was the same for you, this game was the most cut to in terms of highlights. Like, let's go to the studio with James Brown. Like, he would talk about this game the most. 21-3 at halftime for Buffalo. And you mentioned how good the Rams are. And it's almost like a retooling year, right? Because everyone said coming in, like, there's a lot of locked up money and a few guys in the Jalen Ramsey contract. I was one who kind of criticized that, but for two people, I know, I can't remember if you didn't like Jared Goff early on in his career or not.
I did not.
But I don't know about you, but I'm starting to come around more to the idea of him. I think everything's kind of simplified, it looks like, from what I've seen from the Rams over the first couple of weeks. I like that they're running the ball more. It takes pressure off of Goff. And I've said this for any NFL team out there, that if you can commit to the run, or at least run the ball like 20, 25 times a game, it makes your quarterback's throws so much easier. And that was my whole critique in the past couple of years up in New England, was that they didn't do that. But, you know, the other critique for Buffalo is your boy, Josh Allen. I'm happy, Ryan, that you're coming around to the idea that he's a good NFL quarterback. That makes me smile on a cloudy Monday morning. He looks good. He's like, obviously he's a young quarterback. He's going to, make some bad throws or overthrow some people. But I mean, listen, they're 3-0 and we said this is going to be the test and benchmark for the team. And you jump out to that early lead, and then good teams are going to always fight their way back like the Rams did. And then Allen and the Bills pulled it out in the end. And that's what you want from a young team who's trying to put themselves into the conversation this year, which is what Buffalo is doing. So it's a really good win for them. And I don't think people should jump off the Rams bandwagon, like you said. They'll be there. They're in a really tough division. So I'm interested to see them get into divisional games, Ryan, for the Rams. Obviously, you play the Cowboys, Eagles, and then Bills. So you're playing a lot of exotic teams. So you got a lot of divisional games ahead for the Rams. So we're not going to really know what they really are until they play like a Seattle or an Arizona. But good. It was probably the best game of the day, outside of maybe Sunday Night Football, just in terms of two good teams battling it out. So as a New England fan, I'm starting to get a little worried about the Bills. So Sean McDermott, by the way, needs to be in the coach. I'm going to broaden coach of the year to one of the better coaches in the NFL conversation. He needs to be on that list now. Considering what the team was when he picked it up to now, he's got to be in that conversation for one of the better tier coaches in the NFL.
I said last week I wanted to see Josh Allen do what he's been doing against a good team, and he did. The interception was but it's still, I saw
That's going
some
to
good
come from a
things.
young quarterback, though, too. I
Well,
mean,
it's just the processing was a little. Regardless,
he won the game.
not gonna
That's
ruin
the
not
yeah.
gonna ruin the praise. His team won the game. He contributed to that. So good for him. As I said, I'm starting to buy in. I'm not fully bought in. I like, my chips are like halfway on the table,
I'm
but
proud of you, Ryan. I'm really proud of you for coming around to the Josh Allen take. It's been a long, arduous battle for me to try and get you to buy in, but
okay. All right. Listen, okay. I will say this. I was not wrong the past 2 years. I was 100% correct, but he looks different this year. He looks light years different this year. And as we said in our preview, the Bills needed to take advantage and bank some wins early to kind of start off strong. And they've done that. They play the Raiders next week. That should be an interesting game. But then you get the Titans, you get the Chiefs on Thursday night. So as much as everyone loves the Jeff Driscoll and then the Jets matchup this Thursday night, I know everybody wants that, but we're gonna have to settle for the Chiefs and the Bills in a couple weeks. And then the first matchup with the Patriots comes on November 1st. So the Bills have some, not that the Rams game wasn't tough, but they have some tough games coming up too. So it's good that they got this 3-0 start. Everyone knows the statistic. If you start 3-0, it's pretty hard to miss the playoffs. But we'll see if the Bills are going to be one of those teams that make it or one of the few teams that misses out. A lot of teams, well, yeah, I guess a good number of teams started 0-3, Matt, and a few of them improved to 3-0. So we have a group of games here. The Bears went on the road to Atlanta and won 30-26. That's a game we'll probably talk about a little more than these next two. Tennessee was at Minnesota. Steven Gostkowski redeemed himself, and he led the Titans to a win, 31-30. 19 of those points coming directly from Gostkowski. So the Vikings fell to 0-3, and then Houston continued their gauntlet to start the season, traveling to Pittsburgh, and they lost. They gave them a run for their money in the first half, but they had nothing in the second half. So the Steelers improved to 3-0. The Texans fell to 0-3. So before we talk about the 3-0 and 0-3 conundrum, we'll use that word. But Matt, we have to talk about the Falcons, I think, a little more than any of the other teams, because once again, they put themselves in a great position to win. They had a big fourth quarter lead. And I need to just throw out the statistic. I got it from the Ringer and Roger Sherman. Last week, the Falcons had a 99.9% chance of winning. This week, they had a 99.3% chance of winning. The odds of a team hitting on a 0.1% chance of losing and a 0.7% chance are 0.0007%. That's 1 in 140,000. The Falcons are doing something that we've never seen before. In the past, there has never been a team that's blown two 15-point fourth quarter leads in the same season. The Falcons have done it in back-to-back weeks. The Bears, led by big redacted Nick after Mitch Trubisky was benched, led them to a comeback, scored 20 points unanswered in the fourth quarter. You got to fire Dan Quinn today, right? How does this guy still have the job? This is unacceptable.
Yeah, it's funny. So in our wonderful chat yesterday, I didn't have this game up, but I saw the score. Chicago was down big. Atlanta, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I could buy back in. You know how the Falcons usually bring me back in every week. I thought this was the week that Atlanta was going to do it. They looked pretty good in the first half and really in the third quarter too. Mitch Trubisky benched. I'm sure we'll talk about him in a minute. But you got to. This is what big redacted Nick does. He comes into the game and he leads them back and he looks good. The Falcons, Ryan, I think it's like this big inside joke at this point that they just actively don't know how to close out a game. I don't really know why. With all the talent they have on offense, and here's my problem too: the fact that Todd Gurley, when you're up that big of a margin, that Todd Gurley only has 14 carries. That kind of raises an eyebrow for me, especially when Matt Ryan, you throw for 38 times. But I feel like this team just doesn't know how to close out games. Dan Quinn's got to go. It's a big testament to the defense in the sense too, Ryan, that you give up, what was it, 40 points last week, 30 points this week. After you hold the teams that you're playing to like 10 points or under in the first half, Dan Quinn's got to go. We talked about it, I think, last week, whether or not it's him or Gase that's going to go first. I don't know why Arthur Blank holds on to Dan Quinn so much, because you keep him for the back half of the season last year, and he bought himself, in my opinion, 3 more games this year, and now he's 0-3. Just how you tried to explain it, Ryan, I'm kind of out of words. This is a team that has squandered probably the best talent window it's ever had in its franchise history, and it's going to just go out the window in a couple of years, because Matt Ryan's towards the tail end of his prime, and you're just wasting these players' talents at this point, that you're 0-3, and especially in a division this year, Ryan, where we're going to talk about the Saints. They don't look that good to start out the season. So this would have been the perfect opportunity for Atlanta to sneak back into the playoffs. And here we are saying the same old story every week, every year.
So Trubisky got benched. I don't think this is the last we see of him this year. It's just the way that Foles is. I'm sure at some point Foles is going to I have to imagine they have Foles as a starting quarterback for their next game. It'd be hard to go back, but I think that if Foles is going to struggle at some point, they're going to go back to Mitch, but it's not that it wasn't already the end of the road coming into the season. I think most smart analysts kind of figured that out by now. And it seems like the Bears have not. I don't know how you can keep this guy after this year. I'll give him credit. He was a big part of why they came back in week 1 against Detroit, but it's over. I mean, listen, he'll be a backup quarterback in the league for probably as long as he wants to be, but I don't know how you can go back to him with any confidence and say that you still see talent in the guy, because it's hard to defend him after the performance that we saw this week. And not just this week, considering his entire body of work over his career.
I don't want him as my backup quarterback. I'd rather call in 80-year-old Josh McCown and pay him $12,000 a week to sit on his couch in Texas. To me, with Trubisky, obviously he led them to the playoffs with the 12-4 record with the double doink infamous game. That, and people, for any of the Trubisky lovers out there, which I can't imagine there's a lot of them left, or people who defend this decision, a lot of those games when they went 12-4 a couple of years ago, Ryan, the defense would score more points than the offense, or just as many. If you remember, that was one of the best defenses we've seen in quite some time. So it's not like in their one good season with Trubisky, it was all his doing. So as a Chicago Bears fan, people gotta sit there and say, wow, we took this guy, we traded up for this guy, number one. Number two, you passed on Mahomes and Watson, which is the narrative that gets thrown out there way too many times, but it's true. The talent evaluation, I don't really know how that decision came about. He played what, like 14 games at UNC total? The whole thing was that he's football young and he's got room to grow. I'm sorry, but I don't care if it's, Michael Jordan playing football at quarterback for UNC. I'm not taking anyone from UNC who played 14 games at quarterback and that was their entire football career. No thanks. I'm not doing that, especially number 2 overall. He's got to go. The whole thing, though, the problem with Chicago is they're now 3-0, so it's not like they suck to where they could take a good quarterback in the draft. So you're kind of in this conundrum to where you might just have to ride Nick Foles for a year or two. And if you're good, do you really think the Bears are good this year? I mean, they're 3-0, but do you think they're like a good football team?
No, I think they're very unimpressive 3-0.
So that's my whole thing is these 3 wins are hurting your ability to go get a quarterback in the draft. If you really want to move on from Trubisky, so then you got to hope you either sign a guy or you're just going to be kind of in like no man's land for a couple years. So this is a really tough spot for this franchise and a team, obviously, that has all this defensive talent. I don't think it's all on Trubisky. You know how I don't like Matt Nagy. I don't think he's this offensive whiz that's going to take over the league. I think he's approaching Mark Trestman territory in that regard. But Trubisky's got to go. I'm tired of seeing him go out there every week and throw for 80 to 130 yards in like 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. I can't do that anymore. And I'm not even a Bears fan. So they won, but I don't really know. This team will finish like 6-10, 7-9. 3 unimpressive wins, as you said, but it's a disappointment. The fact that you trade up for the guy, and he's been benched more times than probably any other starting quarterback in the NFL during this time frame. Maybe Jameis Winston will throw in there, even not Jameis. So that's probably an embarrassing draft pick that Chicago is going to look back on in a couple of years and regret.
So, Matt, we talked about the Falcons. They started 0-3. The other 2 teams in this kind of grouping, the Vikings started 0-3. The Texans started 0-3. I get there's an expanded postseason this year, but even still, starting 0-3, you're putting yourself in a major hole at the start of the season. Do you think any of these teams have a shot at the playoffs after starting 0-3?
No. It's for the sake of the question, Ryan. I'm doing it. I'm gonna say the Falcons because of.
I don't think that's a bad response. They play well the first 3 quarters. It's just the final quarter. Like if they can get that figured out, they'll be fine.
Like they have the most complete team. Like I thought about Houston for a split second, but the fact that they don't have DeAndre Hopkins still aggravates me. So Bill O'Brien can go figure that out. Like Atlanta, and I keep saying this, and we're going to talk about New Orleans later, so I'm not going to trash them right now, but this is still a wide open division because Tampa Bay is starting to kind of kick it into gear, but we can't really put that win that they had yesterday into anything because they played Jeff Driscoll. So the Falcons, could very easily be 2-1 and be leading the division right now. So that being said, the Vikings stink. We had a friend who was a Vikings fan, but we are pretty sure that he has dumped them for another team. So that shows the state of the Vikings right now. A lifelong Vikings fan ditched them for the Raiders, we believe. We have not confirmed that. But one thing on Gostkowski, Ryan, Boston Globe beat writer Ben Volen, who is not well revered in the fan base, some interesting takes that he's thrown around, said, the Patriots would love to have Gostkowski this week because Nick Folk sucks. Maybe I'll throw that out there when we talk about that game. But Gostkowski, this is the anomaly. The Monday Night Football game is more like where he is right now. I don't know what it is since I guess it was the 2015 AFC Championship game when he missed the PAT at Denver. Everything since, he's been kind of in his head. So this game, I'm happy for him that he had those field goals, but this is the anomaly. I don't know if we go as far to say he's back just yet. He misses a lot more important kicks than he makes at this stage in his career, which is sad to see, but Tennessee, a quality road win for them. But that was my one thing I had to throw in there on Gostkowski. Don't buy back into him if you're a fantasy owner.
So the favorite teams part of the Week 3 slate, the Patriots improved to 2-1 with a 36-20 win over the Raiders, who were 2-0 going into the day. The Eagles and the Bengals tied for the second time. This, of course, it happened back in 2008 when Donovan McNabb didn't know that you could end in a tie. This time the 2 teams knew they could end in a tie, but they just didn't seem to care. I'm going to get my takes out of the way real quick so Matt can talk about his Patriots takes. Wentz looked bad. Doug was bad. I think it's ironic. No, okay, so first of all, you're going up against a bad run defense. You only run the ball, I think it was 18 times. It's unacceptable. And I'm not a big proponent of, oh, you got to pound the rock, this and that. But when you're playing against a bad run defense, you really need to give Sanders, you maybe throw Scott in there, Clement. You got to give them some chances to run the ball against a bad run defense. I think it's ironic that Doug wrote a book called Fearless after they won the Super Bowl and that he proceeded to punt and play for the tie with 19 seconds to go on a 4th and 7. I think that's such a coward move. I think it's stupid that NFL games can end in a tie to begin with, but I digress. It's over for the Eagles. The season's over. That's it. They needed to win. They didn't. They have to play the 49ers. They have to play the Steelers. They have to play the Ravens the next 3 weeks. It's over. This team could very realistically be 0-5-1 when we talk about them in 3 weeks, but it's over. So that's it. That's my takes. So Matt,
with your division though, Ryan,
I don't
you're
want to
not
hear that.
really out of it.
The Cowboys are light
I
years
know.
better.
I'm trying to give you.
I don't need any positivity. I don't need any hope. I've accepted that
here's
this team
my
is
one
bad.
take. And this is no offense to Eagles fans, but like it's different. You're right. There should be no tie in football. The only sport that you should be able to tie in is soccer because you directly benefit from drawing against another opponent because you get a point that helps you boost the standings. In the NFL, it's just a weird tiebreaker. So that if there's no direct benefit to tying, it shouldn't be in the rule book. And I think it's in football specifically, it's kind of a loser's mentality to punt the ball there, Ryan. At least just heave it downfield. What's the worst that could happen? A pick six? That's highly unlikely from that position on the field if you heave it towards the end zone. Just heave it down the field.
My thing in that situation, from a coaching perspective, I understand what Doug was trying to do, but at the same time, a tie does nothing for you, right? You needed to win that game more than you need the tie. So I don't know why. Listen, if they lost, I'm of the mindset that a loss is the same as a tie, basically. I don't care what the standings say. The Eagles basically lost the game. It was a 60. Number one, I think he should have just went for the field goal. Elliott, I know, has the leg strength. It's 64 yards.
Well, those
just let him try it.
Those penalties were atrocious, Ryan. And on the drive prior, too. It wasn't even just that drive. It was...
I think I saw a stat, Matt, that the teams combined for 45 yards in that 10-minute overtime. And I have to imagine more of those yards, there were more penalty yards than actual yards gained. So, I mean, the entire game was bad. It was awful, so bad to watch. But it's just, I don't know, it's unacceptable. As I said, I think it's ironic that Doug writes a book called Fearless and then just he punts. But I don't go for the field goal. It was 4th and 7. I know you're missing playmakers, but let your offense go back there, at least try. I know that you're going to give the Bengals good starting field position, but they had like 15 seconds. But at that point, I'd want to trust my defense against a rookie quarterback on a team with no timeouts to not get into field goal range. It would have been very difficult for them to get the field goal unit on the field and go for the win. Just, I don't know. That blew my mind. That pissed me off so much. But I'm not going to. This is a good vibes podcast, Matt. So I'm going to let you talk about your team that's good, that's 2-1. I'll say it's the Raiders. I was following along. The Raiders looked good early on, and then it just all kind of went to what. Patriots kind of got their things back in line, and they put up a 36-20 win. So I'm going to ask you again. The Bills are 3-0. They look very good. But the Patriots are still right there. So what's your confidence level in them this week?
Well, the defense did not look great for at least the first half of the game. Vegas kind of got whatever they wanted early on. I think when you compare them to Buffalo, Josh Allen is probably going to have a field day with the defense with the way they're playing right now. But I've said this before, the Belichick defense is usually become better as the weeks go on. It was the opposite last year, but that's because the schedule, we played 8 awful teams to start out the year. This year's different. I will say the lack of linebackers hurts, but offensively, They looked shaky in the first half. A lot of 3-and-outs. Couldn't really get a lot of things going. Name for fantasy owners to watch, not to pick up, but to keep an eye on is J.J. Taylor. Once he started running the ball, the offense started to pick things up. Sony Michel started to get going too. Rex Burkhead had like 3 touchdowns. Fantasy owners don't pick up any Patriots running backs because Damian Harris comes back next week. Many people think he's the best of the bunch. That's if you count James White, who hasn't played the past 2 weeks, 5 running backs that are capable of doing good things for New England, which makes me confident in their offense and the versatility that they have, because James White could line up in the slot and be just as effective. Listen, Cam looked good. The defense came through in the fourth quarter when we needed them to. So good win. If they lost that game, Ryan, it would have been a much different narrative for sure. A team in Oakland and Vegas on a short week coming to New England. I thought John Gruden made some interesting play call decisions in the fourth quarter, kind of led at one point to a strip sack fumble for a touchdown. Literally in the end zone. It was originally called a safety. Kind of some interesting decisions there by Gruden and his staff, but good win for New England. I don't think the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders are necessarily out of it yet, Ryan. And I think they're a pretty good team. Tony Romo said on the broadcast yesterday, it's a lot simpler this year for Derek Carr. I know neither of us are really big Derek Carr guys, but it's a lot easier for him to do things this year. So I'm encouraged by the Patriots. We're going to get the doors blown off us next week. So, we'll be 2-2 after next week with Kansas City. So encouraging. Patriots will be in the mix for a wild card berth for sure.
The next part of this, I agree. The next part of this is the New Jersey team segment. That's the New Jersey Giants and the New Jersey Jets. They looked very bad again. Both franchises have become poverty franchises. The 49ers, who were missing their QB1, RB1, RB2, tight end 1, tight end 2, wide receiver 1, cornerback 2, cornerback 4, defensive ends 1, 3, 4, and 5, linebacker 2, wide receivers 4 and 5, and center 1. Defeated the Giants 36-9. So I saw some people saying that the 49ers had to travel back to California and then come make the trip back. So they didn't do that. They went down to West Virginia and stayed at a hotel. So they didn't have to travel that far again. But with the team suffering from this many injuries, having to stay basically on the East Coast again for another week, with a lot of their players complaining about the turf at MetLife, which I think is clearly a very big issue. This is a game that the Giants, I'm not going to say they needed to win because I know the talent level of that team, but they needed to at least keep it competitive, and they couldn't even do that. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Jets put up 7 points, a strong 7 points in the first quarter, and then the offensive genius Adam Gase couldn't figure out how to get back in the end zone. They lost 36-7. So Glenn DeNegris, friend of the show, posed a question on his Instagram story about which team figures it out first. So I thought that was an interesting question to kind of pose for this group of 2 games because both of these teams look awful. The future outlook for both of these teams, at least in the very short-term future, doesn't look very good. So which team, Matt, gets it together first?
I texted it to you yesterday. I think it's the Jets. I think a lot of the problems with the Jets circles around Adam Gase. And you and I have talked about this endlessly, that if you take him out and you put in a competent individual with the decent pieces that are around Sam Darnold, he's going to win you a few games. I mean, Darnold has proven, and obviously last year was shaky for him early on, but he won a couple games for them down the stretch. And I think a lot of this comes down to coaching. For the Giants, I don't think they could really accurately evaluate talent to any regard. I think Daniel Jones is a good quarterback on a bad team. When Saquon comes back, he's not going to be, I mean, hopefully he'll be 100% himself, but coming back from a knee injury like that is going to be tough, especially with the fact that they can't even protect Jones. Saw something, Ryan. They turned the ball over like 35, 36 times since Jones took over as the quarterback. To put that in perspective, that was like this time last year, which is an insane amount of turnovers. Darnold wasn't too much better. I'm pretty sure that's like 54, but obviously he's been in the league a little bit longer. But I don't understand with the Giants, with the amount of big name guys they've been able to kind of bring in to where they just can't put together. The Jets is solely on Adam Gase. I'm blaming it on him and maybe a couple holes here and there, but the Giants are in a much worse position. I just don't think they can really accurately gauge talent, especially in the lower levels of the draft, because really where you make or break your team. And I don't think the Giants can really evaluate at a high level. It's easy to say Saquon Barkley's a good running back. We're going to take him second overall. But what about like the fifth round when you're trying to fill out your defense, which is not great in itself? That's when you win the draft, and they haven't been able to do that. So the Jets are going to figure it out first.
The Giants aren't going to figure anything out, I agree, until their front office is revamped and rehauled. Something that they need to do for a while, and they still can't seem to figure it out. I'm not going to say any names, but there's some crazy takes going around about the Giants, how it'd be detrimental to take a different quarterback in the draft this year and not stay with Daniel Jones. I'm going to say right now, that's one of the stupidest asinine takes I've ever heard. I don't know how you can watch this guy with any confidence and say that he's your future. If this team somehow is the worst team in football and they have a chance to take Trevor Lawrence, they better do it, because that would be more detrimental, passing up on Trevor Lawrence just to stay with your boy Daniel Jones. But I agree. I think that the Jets, I agree with your viewpoint that I think once they fire Gase, which I'm surprised I haven't gotten the news report yet. It'll probably happen Friday after the Thursday night game. And that was actually reported by Chris Mortensen yesterday, that they're going to look very closely at his performances this week, which I don't know. I guess they weren't looking at his performances before. Whatever. I think that I like Joe Douglas. I think that they got the right guy to lead their front office. I think you need to let the guy bring his own coach in and then just see what happens from there. I still have confidence that Darnold could turn it around with the right coaching. But for right now, it's just, I'm sorry if you're a fan of one of these teams. I can't imagine it's been very fun. You have my deepest condolences.
Especially for anyone that's going to watch that game. Sorry to cut you off, Thursday night. Anyone that will sit down with postseason baseball going on and watch the Jets and Broncos play.
That's
my
a
deepest
good game.
Condolences.
The Jeff Driscoll-led Broncos and then Adam Gase and the Jets. That's a barn burner. I cannot wait to sit down in front of my TV and watch that one. I hope everyone feels the same.
I'm sure Joe and Troy feel the same way too.
I'm sure
bad for them.
Yeah.
Back-to-back weeks, Miami and Jacksonville gets inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame and say, thanks, Joe. Go cover the Dolphins and Jaguars and then the Jets and Broncos. Welcome to the Hall of Fame, I guess, for Joe Buck there, but go ahead.
Well,
Brian.
At least last week you had Fitzpatrick and Minshew. This week, I'm not even going to talk about it. The Browns beat football team 34-20. The football team, so it was kind of like alternating quarters. Washington took a 7-0 lead. Browns scored 17 in the second. Washington came back and scored 13 in the third. Then Cleveland scored 17 in the fourth. And they improved to 2-1. Carolina picked up a surprising win over the Chargers. They tried a hook and ladder play, the Chargers did at the end of the game as the time was running out, that looked like it was going to work, but they couldn't get the lateral part correct. I think if they had gotten it correct, it would have worked, but unfortunately the Chargers fall to 1-2. Panthers pick up their first win under Matt Rule. Tampa Bay went into Denver and won pretty handily, 28-10. They looked very good. Brady looked very good. And then Detroit picked up a surprising win on the road against Arizona. Arizona looked good the first 2 weeks, but in this one, they did not look as impressive. Kyler Murray started off fast, but he couldn't keep the momentum throughout the entire game. And give credit to Matt Patricia and the Lions. They finally pick up a win. They probably should be 2-1 right now, at least. But yeah, that's Matt, do you have any quick hitters from those games? I think my biggest thing would probably just be the Tampa Bay looks like the most impressive team in that division right now. If Brady continues to play like he did, I'd say in part of week 2, and then especially this week against Denver, they'll probably be in a good position to make a run at the title for the division.
Yeah, Tampa Bay looks good. Brady, this has become more of the statistical anomaly for his stage of his career, but I'm happy he looks good. Denver's defense is a little depleted, so I don't put too much stock into there, but it's still reps for him to get with that offense, which I think is important. So the opponent wasn't impressive, but the repetitions that they're able to get on the field against real life competition that wasn't their own defense, I think is beneficial regardless of who you play. Bad day for Birds, Ryan. Your Birds, the Birds in Arizona and the Birds in Atlanta. Only one Bird team won, I think, but still bad day for Birds. Arizona, I think that's a game you have to win, Ryan. But we established that they aren't fully in the conversation yet, are the Cardinals. So they're getting there. But, yeah, the other 2 games are meh. Football team has a pretty decent defense, though, Ryan. I will say that. So they have something to look forward to there.
So the Bird team you're alluding to that actually won on Sunday was the Seahawks. They defeated the visiting Dallas Cowboys. So the Seahawks have improved to 3-0. They're kind of containing their stranglehold on the NFC. They look like a bona fide contender as they're letting Russ cook. The Cowboys made a game out of it. I will give them credit for that. Dak Prescott led them and helped them battle back. But, they even had a chance at the end of the game, but unfortunately he threw an interception, and that was the end of all that talk. But still, I think – so number one, I'm going to go out on a limb here. It might be kind of a hot take. Seattle's the best team in the NFC by far, bar none. It's I don't know. At least for me, it's kind of hard to deny that. As long as they keep letting Russ cook, that's all they need to do. We'll see if they continue to let him cook. But the Cowboys look good. They're clearly the best team in the NFC East. I don't know if that's saying a whole lot. Dak looked good again. I can't imagine it's ideal to have him throw 57 times. I don't think that's what they intended going into the game, but I think there's positives to take away, obviously, for the Seahawks. But I think if you're a Dallas fan through the first 3 weeks, I know you lost a tough one to the Rams. I know this was another winnable game they could have won. I'm sure that there's some people that are kind of wondering if it's going to be the same deal as last year, where they're in a lot of games late, but they just can't finish. I still think that if you're a Cowboys fan, you're fine, especially looking at their upcoming schedule. Cleveland, the Giants, Arizona, Washington, Philadelphia. That's 5. That's at least 4 winnable games right there. And then Arizona, that's probably a 5th. I don't know. I think if you're a Dallas fan, I don't know if there's any level of upsetness. We're going to say that's a word with Dallas, but I think that team will be fine. I think the fan base needs to just accept. The offenses look very good. That's been the big thing. The defense was the question mark going into the year, and clearly there's some things to work out on that side of the ball, Matt. But Dallas looked good. Otherwise, I think they'll be fine. Seattle, though, this is a team that I think could play in the Super Bowl. I was hesitant to commit to them playing in the Super Bowl as the NFC representative, but based on what I've seen through the first 3 weeks, I think now it's a definite possibility.
People are very quick to blame Mike McCarthy for things too. Give the guy a chance. When you look at Seattle's schedule, though, Ryan, here's a stretch for you from November 30th until basically Christmas. You ready for this? Philadelphia, both New York teams, and football team. That's like they end the year on a pretty easy track before 2 divisional games against the Rams and Niners, but they have a lot more wins ahead of them, and they're 3-0 right now. I agree with you. I think Russell Wilson is what it's hard to compare him to Mahomes. He's definitely top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I think he's like 1A to Patrick Mahomes right now. And then Lamar comes in at like number 2. But Seattle looks really good. And there are some question marks defensively a little bit, but that kind of shored up. They do give up a lot of points, though, Ryan. That's the one thing that, excuse me, keep an eye on. 25, 30, 31. I get you're winning those games, but I don't know if Pete Carroll wants to get into a lot of shootouts, especially in November and December. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. But Seattle, I agree. They're the favorite to go to the Super Bowl right now from the NFC.
Just as a fun fact for all the listeners out there, the Cowboys are part of the NFC East, which is the only division in football, not only to not have a 2-win team, but also where every team has a negative point differential. And you compare that to a division like the NFC West, where you have Seattle at 3-0, and then 3 other teams at 2-1. All 4 of those teams have a positive point differential. So Dallas will be fine, especially in this division. I think as time goes on, they'll come together, and then they'll be a formidable threat come the playoffs. But yeah, Seattle's they're very good. They're very good, and the team that won Sunday night, who I wasn't super high on coming into the season, they're kind of proving me wrong, and that's the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the other team in the NFC that has started 3-0. I know Chicago started 3-0, but I'm not really going to count them. It's Green Bay and Seattle right now, and Green Bay has looked impressive the first 3 weeks of the season. They go into New Orleans, I don't know if you got to hit the panic button on the Saints, but I don't know.
I say wait until Michael Thomas comes back. Give Michael Thomas a couple weeks because he is a lot of those routes that Drew Brees will throw to, like the intermediate passing range. But watching him try and throw it to Emmanuel Sanders down the field is comical at this point.
So their leading receiver is Alvin Kamara, who had 13 receptions, which I can't imagine. I mean, he's obviously a talented guy. He went 13 for 139, but I can't imagine they want to throw the ball to him that many times a game. As you said, if they had Michael Thomas back, I think that'll help things out. I mean, Breeze looked he looked solid. It's probably the best he's looked all year. I mean, he clearly has limitations at this point in his career. I think that needs to be said. Normally, these limitations haven't shown themselves until like December, and then once the playoffs begin, now they're showing themselves in September. So I think that's something that they need to watch. But I'm not going to say they're not going to be fine. There's just too much talent on that team for them not to be, at least at this point. But man, I don't know. I'm looking at this Packers team. They said I wasn't very high on them, but I guess I was wrong. You scored 43, 42, and 37 points. I know the defense maybe has left a little bit to be desired. I think that's fair, but this is a team that I think we're probably going to have to watch out for. And I mean, you look at their upcoming schedule, they have some tough games coming up. You have to play Atlanta. They should win that game, but I don't know what to make of Atlanta. Tampa Bay, that'll be a fun game to watch, Rodgers and Brady. But then they travel to Houston, and that'll end their October slate. Is Green Bay, are they for real? Do you think they're for real?
Well, they did that last night without Devontae Adams as well. So a lot of guys kind of had to step up, and the whole narrative was they didn't go out and get anyone for Aaron Rodgers. They drafted a quarterback instead, and he's going out there and proving to them that you could give him, some dude from like FCS, and he's still going to go out there and win games. And to his credit, he has done that. And Aaron Rodgers is proving that he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think their division sets them up to be a really good threat, Ryan, especially with the fact that you have a 3-0 team in Chicago that benched their quarterback. So that'll be something Green Bay can look forward to in November when they play them for the first time. Minnesota stinks. Detroit will do it to themselves, as we've seen. So, yeah, I agree. It's tough because Aaron Rodgers is kind of like one of those cocky guys that like you want to hate, but like at the same time, he's like really good and you got to respect his talent. And especially with the fact that he's kind of going out there with like Aaron Jones and like half of Devontae Adams and like no one else, he's putting together a really solid season. So got to give credit where credit's due. Friend of the show, Jillian Young, congrats on your 3-0 football team. William O'Neill as well, friend of the show. Congrats on your 3-0 team. Yeah, we'll
Must be
see where it
nice.
goes. I think I don't gauge the Atlanta game at home as much as I do Tampa Bay after the bye week on the road. If they could go into Tampa Bay and beat Brady, then we'll start talking, because by that point, Tom's going to kind of have that offense rolling theoretically. So we'll see. But Green Bay, great start to say the least, and I think they'll win their division even if they didn't try the rest of the year.
So that was week 3 in the NFL. Very nice Monday night matchup tonight, Kansas City and Baltimore. Make sure to check that out. That should be a lot of fun. But now we're going to get into the Major League Baseball postseason, which is going to be starting tomorrow on September 29th. And the seeds were all set yesterday. As a Phillies fan, whatever, not going to talk about it. Hopefully, I see the Clentac fired notification at some point while we're recording. But regardless, there's a lot of fun matchups. We're going to start in the American League. So the Wild Card Series takes place. For those of you that don't know, it's a 3-game series. So the team just needs to win 2 of these games. So we'll start in the American League with the number 1 seed, the Tampa Bay Rays, who won the division for the first time since 2010. And now they not only won the division, they got the 1 seed. They'll be playing divisional rival Toronto in the first round. Toronto made it in the playoffs, a year that I can't imagine many people expected them to, but they were able to get in there as the 8th seed. Matt, I think that the Rays are going to win in 2 games. I think they're just vastly more talented compared to Toronto. I think it's a nice story that Toronto was able to make it this year. I think it gives them something to build upon for future years, but I'd be shocked if Tampa Bay dropped a game.
I had them in 3, just because I don't really know how to accurately gauge these series yet to win back-to-back games. I think it's very possible. This series, I was very back and forth with in terms of a sweep or 3 games. But Tampa Bay's pitching, I think, really kind of puts them in a really, really good spot. I think it's also impressive, too, and I'm not bashing your Phillies, but it's going to prove my point, that in a game in a series where they really had nothing to play for, their pitchers went out there and really limited Philadelphia's offense that, for better or worse, has some really talented players. So I think the Rays are really deep there. And, yeah, this should be a quickie for Tampa for sure.
It was weird that I was watching the relief pitchers come out for Tampa Bay and they put up zeros. I didn't know that you were allowed to do that, but Tampa Bay will likely play the winner of the 4-5 matchup, which is Cleveland and the Yankees. So the Yankees entered the season with a lot of hype, and they finished off the season as the 5 seed in the American League. I know they dealt with injuries, but still, I can't imagine that's where most fans thought they would be when the season started back in July. That's crazy that the season started back in July. Now it's late September. But Cleveland, even though they traded Mike Clevinger, they were able to get the 4 seed. That just goes to show the pitching depth that they have. Man, I'm going to go Cleveland in 3. I think there's going to be 1 game where the Yankees bats carry them to a W, but I know their bullpen's very good, but I don't think they have the overall pitching that they're going to need to compete with Cleveland. I like Cleveland a lot in this series. I think that their pitching can carry them at least through the wild card series. And I think they have enough bats. I'm not as high in their offense, but I think they have enough bats that they'll be able to stay competitive with New York. And I think that Cleveland's going to be able to make it to the ALDS over New York.
I like New York in 3. I think – so here's the thing. I thought about this. The scariest thing, I think, in a postseason in any sport is a team that had so many expectations at the beginning of the year, kind of fell short of them, but still made the playoffs. Those are the most dangerous teams, in my opinion. And I had a couple examples in mind. I think one of them that comes to mind would be I think it was the last year that LeBron was in Cleveland the second time, when they were like the 4 seed and they made it to the finals again. So those kind of teams, in my opinion, obviously there's no LeBron James on this New York team, but they still have good players. And I think those are the most dangerous teams in any playoff situation. So I like New York in 3. I think this team will figure it out, try and mount some momentum. Obviously, it was kind of a shaky season and inconsistencies throughout, but I think the talent's there, and I think they'll put it together. I'm telling you, Ryan, those are the most dangerous teams in sports. The failed to meet regular season expectations, but are still in the playoffs because you could flip a switch and they're going to be World Series champions. So I'm not saying that, but could be a possibility. I know Glenn, friend of the show, and Zach, friend of the show, Yankee fans might disagree with me that I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, but I would find it hard to believe that they couldn't win 2 out of 3 when they needed to.
For their sake, I hope that they're not left disappointed in a few days, but I'm just not confident in the Yankees to do what they need to do and take 2 out of 3. But listen, I'm not wrong a lot, but when it comes to this podcast, it seems like I've been a little off at times, which is a little weird for me. But we'll see. We'll see if the Yankees can prove me wrong again, and then friends of the show, Glenn Denevers and Zach Cosenza can roast me, and I'll accept it. But at the bottom half of the bracket, there's a couple of intriguing matchups. The Twins made it in as 3 seed, and they were rewarded with a matchup against Houston, the Astros, and unpopular prediction here, I have Houston in 3. I know that they're missing some arms, but I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think that Houston has what it takes to topple the Twins, and I think that Houston can definitely do what they need to do to make it to the ALDS next week.
I almost picked Houston in this, but for the sake of just staying with most of the baseball culture and hating the Astros, I picked Minnesota in 3. I think this could go either way. I think this is probably the most 50-50 matchup that you're going to see, or at least one of them. Minnesota, this is your chance to kind of prove yourself. This is a great regular season team, but in the postseason, this kind of ran into some tough opponents. I think this is the opportunity to really at least get some momentum under you with this young core that they have. So I'll take Minnesota in 3, and we'll see if that sticks. You will probably be right on this, Ryan, but I'm gonna still trust my gut here.
The final matchup in the American League, the Athletics and the Chicago White Sox. Chicago White Sox are a team that I said would not make the playoffs this year. I said that they started off well, but they're going to fall back down to earth, and they did not. They were the 1 seed relatively recently, but they fell off, and they clinched the 7 seed, and they were rewarded for that with a tough matchup against Oakland, who I know is missing Matt Chapman, but I still like Oakland a lot. They're going to be one of the teams that I root for since my team is incompetent and isn't able to make an expanded postseason, and now is the second longest playoff drought in baseball. I'm not upset. Just saying. I think Oakland wins this in 2 games. I think Chicago's a great story. I think they obviously have talent, but I just like Oakland a lot more. And I think that Oakland is going to easily move on to the ALDS.
I have Chicago in 3. Oakland, this is the prove it to me series. If Oakland can win a playoff series, then I will buy in. Oakland in the past has disappointed me every time I've picked them to win postseason games when they've been in it. So this, if they could prove it to me, then I will buy in. Ryan, it's not a discount to their talent. Obviously, no Matt Chapman is going to hurt, but I think this could go either way as well. I'm going to take Chicago in 3, but I will say if Oakland wins, here's a big spin zone here, so that way I'm never wrong. If Oakland wins, I think they will be one of the more talented teams in the divisional series. But I was just disappointed how last year ended for them. And I thought they were going to kind of put things together last year. So this is the show it to me series for Oakland. I'm not bought in yet on them in the postseason. I'm not denying their talent, not denying their ability to win games, but in the postseason, in a short situation, you got to show it to me.
So that was the American League with the Wild Card Series. Now we're going to move on to so the American League starts it off tomorrow on Tuesday with their 4 series, and then all 8 series will play on Wednesday. That'll be a very fun day. It starts at 12 p.m. and then goes all the way down to the final game of the day at 10 p.m., which is the Dodgers and the Brewers. That's the 1-8 matchup in the National League. So that'll be a fun day of baseball. 12 hours of baseball, 13 hours of baseball, basically playoff baseball at that. So that'll be a lot of fun to keep track of. But Dodgers and Brewers, the Brewers made it in through no efforts of their own. They lost, but because the Giants lost and the Phillies lost, the Brewers made it in. I'm going to go with the Dodgers in 2. I don't know. I don't think it's close at all, especially with Corbin Burns on the IL. It's just, I mean, even if he wasn't, the Dodgers are they're one of the more talented teams I've seen in a while. I'd be shocked if the Brewers kept it close.
Yeah, Milwaukee's kind of just happy to be there. Team that really had to dig themselves out of a hole to even get into that conversation. LA in 2. A nice little bye week for the Dodgers before they start the real playoffs. So nice little break for them.
So the Dodgers are preparing for who they'll play out of the 4-5 matchup, and that's a darling favorite here based on what's happened this season, the San Diego Padres, and they will be going up against the St. Louis Cardinals, friend of the show, Nick Halper's St. Louis Cardinals. And I have the Padres winning this series in 2 games. There's pieces on the Cardinals that I do like. I think that the games will be close, but overall, I think I like San Diego's talent level a little bit more, and I think that they'll be able to take care of business and have what should be a fun matchup with the Dodgers in the NLDS.
Here's another team in the postseason that kind of figures it out when they need to in St. Louis. Obviously, they did it last year for a brief moment of time. I think they'll get a game, but I think San Diego wins in 3. And talk about incompetent teams that we're fans of. We just actively tried to lose, so I'm trying to find a team to pull for this year. My team will be San Diego, team that we said last week, Ryan, was last in the playoffs in like 2006. So I'm hoping for them to kind of pull through and have a nice little deep run. And they're set up for a nice future as well, but this will be a good test for them early on. But a team they should beat in St. Louis, and a team in St. Louis that missed almost like the first 3 weeks of the season with that COVID outbreak and still managed, with all the doubleheaders and all the condensed scheduling that they had to do to make up those games, made the playoffs. So I'll give credit where credit's due. I'll give them a game, but Padres in 3.
At the bottom half of the bracket for the National League, it starts off with the Cubs, who were, this is kind of 2 teams that people didn't, well, one team that people didn't really know what to make of going into the year, another team that people thought would finish last in the division, and that's the Cubs and the Marlins. The Miami Marlins have made the playoffs. I can't remember the last time they made it. I want to say 2009, maybe. I would have to double check that. But it's been a while. They had one of the longest playoff droughts in baseball. It was longer than the Phillies, but now the Phillies have the second longest playoff drought in baseball. Not upset. Just saying. And they're going to go up against the Chicago Cubs. I have the Cubs in 3 games. I think Miami will be able to squeak one out at some point, but I don't think that they have enough to defeat the Cubs. I think the Cubs have enough pieces to move on to the NLDS, but Miami is a great story. I think it's great in the playoffs, and you know, even though the Phillies are in the same division as them, I hope that Miami's able to continue to have success, because I don't know. I think it's good when, you know, kind of smaller teams are able to have success and make it in. So I'd love to see Miami kind of sustain some of the success over the next few years.
So not sure if this is a trustworthy source. We're on Wikipedia. Last time that Miami, they've only made the postseason twice in their history, Ryan.
Oh, wow. They haven't made it since 2003.
Yeah, that's what Wikipedia says.
Wow.
Also, mind you, those 2 seasons that they made it, they made World Series runs. So here's a big stay woke out there for all the people out there. This could be a deep run for Miami. But do I really trust Wikipedia with this knowledge, Ryan? I don't remember any time since 2003 that they made the postseason. It makes sense. They did have some winning seasons, though. You are right. They were 12 over in 09.
That's what it was.
Yeah, they were 12 over, but they were 6 out. So haven't made the playoffs in that long. Josh Beckett, by the way, was a World Series MVP in 2003. Chicken and Brewski's guy from the Red Sox years. But anyway, I like Chicago in 2. Miami is another one of the happy to be there teams. I think they're feisty. They're a feisty team, but I think Chicago wins in 2. But Marlins postseason history, one of the best postseason teams ever in Major League Baseball, just in terms of what they've been able to do in their postseason appearances. So just keep that in mind. There you go. Spin zone.
Good one. Like it. The
Yeah.
final matchup in the National League, the Atlanta Braves, who won the National League East, are going to go up against the wild card team, the Cincinnati Reds. I have the Reds in 2. I'm just,
Oh,
I know that the Braves obviously have talent, but I don't know. I like the Reds. I like Trevor Bauer. I like what the Reds are doing. I think they have the pieces that they need to pull the upset. And I think that they're going to be able to set up an NL Central battle in the NLDS. I think that I know. As I said, I don't think the Braves are going to get a game. I like the Reds in 2.
I like Atlanta in 3. Cincinnati, I think Major League Baseball needs more guys like Trevor Bauer. Cincinnati's another team that I think is pretty good. I think their pitching's outstanding, and I think if they win, I think that's what it's going to be on. For Atlanta's sake, with that talent, I hope they win because they had a disappointing exit in 2019, obviously, at the hands of the Cardinals. So I'll take Atlanta in 3, see if that sticks. But that'll probably be one of the more entertaining series in the first round for sure. But Cincinnati, I think, will be there for more than just this year. They're kind of, and that was like the sexy pick kind of thing with the talent that they have, but they're building something pretty decent there too. But I love their pitching staff a lot more than I love Atlanta's. So it could very easily swing your way on this one.
So we'll talk about each series as it happens. So when the AL, and the NLDS starts, we'll give our predictions and preview. It's same with the ALCS and the World Series. But I want to get it on the record now, Matt. What is your World Series prediction on September 28th?
Dodgers and I need an American League team, Ryan. Dodgers, I think they're going to run through everyone. You know what? Hot take central here. Sound the alarm. Dodgers, Yankees, World Series. Dodgers and Yankees. That way I can know and see effectively I could jinx all the Yankee fans out there and I could get a win as a Red Sox fan. So there you go. But it's going to be an AL East team that makes the World Series. It's going to be either Tampa Bay or it's going to be New York. There you go.
Yeah, I'm going to go chalk. I'm going to go the 2-1 seeds. I know how exciting that is. I'm going to go the Dodgers, who I agree. I don't see a team in the National League that can compete with them. The Padres might be able to give them a run, but I still think the Dodgers have more talent. And then I'm going to go with the Rays out of the American League. I like the Rays a lot. I think that they're good in every aspect of the game. And they're going to face some challenges, but I think they should be able to make it. I really want a Tampa Bay Oakland ALCS. That's what I'm rooting for. I would love to see that. But
that would be the least viewed ALCS ever.
No, stop.
I want one of those teams to make it to the World Series, but I could just see a team that's been there before, like New York, making it. I really can see it, and I hope I jinx them and they lose in 3. But it'll be great Twitter content for some of our friends that we mentioned this week, for sure. So I'm excited more so for that than the actual baseball.
So Stanley Cup playoffs. So that was a nice baseball segment. I want to get into the Stanley Cup playoffs because Game 6 is tonight, and it could end tonight. We said that it could end by the next time we record the podcast. It almost did, but not quite. Tampa Bay went on a 3-game winning streak. They went up 3-1. They were on the cusp of winning a Stanley Cup, but Dallas in 2 overtimes managed to pot a game winner and force Game 6. And Matt, I don't know, the 3-1 lead in hockey, it's very dangerous because you let that team win Game 5. It gives them the confidence to go into Game 6, maybe pick up a W. I think this goes 7 games. I really do. I think that Dallas has the momentum. I think they have what it takes to force a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals, which I think would be a lot of fun. I'm picking Dallas tonight to extend the series.
No, Tampa Bay should have ended it in 5, partially just because I had them winning in 5 and I would have looked like a genius. So I'm mad at John Cooper's squad for that. I think Tampa wins in 6. I think they're a much better team. Must be a great time to live in Tampa Bay right now. You got a good football team. You got a team that's about to win the Stanley Cup. And you got a baseball team that's probably one of the favorites to win the World Series. So Tampa Bay's bringing some. Is that the new Boston South, Ryan? Is that Boston South? Are we calling it that yet? It's a good place to be. I think Tampa Bay wins in 6, Ryan. They're just a much better team, in my opinion. It's great that Dallas got a nice morale booster, but I'm not a believer in momentum when you're going up against a team that deep and that talented.
Friend of the show, Ross Anderson, is a big Tampa Bay fan. He loves his Rays. He loves his Buccaneers. He loves his Lightning. So he's gone through a lot of crap with those Tampa Bay teams over the years. So happy for him. Happy for all the fans there. As you said, that I mean, all 3 teams legitimately have a chance to win a championship in their sport. So I'm interested to see if that does come to fruition. But yeah, it's crazy that hockey might end tonight. I'm not quite ready to say that, but all good things must come to an end. Hopefully there can be a game 7, but we will see. NASCAR Power Minute. That's going to be about a power second. Kurt Busch won at Vegas at his home track last night, so he clinched himself a spot in the round of 8. So that's good for him.
I saw a video. Sorry to cut you off, but it's a good conversation story. You should be proud of me that I have a NASCAR point here. Some dude, I don't know. I don't recognize these guys unless there's a graphic that says who it is, except for maybe like 3 people. Who said, "I'm just here so I don't get fined" or something. He looked very upset after a race.
So that was last year. That was Kyle Busch.
Okay.
Yeah, he had. People get on him for showing emotion like that. I think it's good for the sport. I think it's good that these guys have personalities. I mean, Kyle's a guy that wants to win all the time. So obviously when things don't go right and he's, wins taken away from him, he's going to be very upset that he couldn't pull out the checkered flag. So he's a very polarizing guy in the NASCAR community. Either you really like him or you really hate him. There's not really something either way, but yeah, I love that press conference. I love a lot of his press conferences. I know some people, he rubs them the wrong way, but yeah, his brother won at Las Vegas, a guy that had not yet won during the season was Kurt Busch, and he picked a great time to get his first one, as now he doesn't have to go through the treacherous. He doesn't need to try to do well at Talladega, the Charlotte Roval. Anything can happen, but he's locked himself into the round of 8, which is, I'm proud of him. It's good. It's kind of cool to see him at least make it to the next round. I don't think he makes it to the championship round, but hey, it's cool that at least he won a race this year. That's neat to see. Right now, on the outside looking in, Kyle Busch is on the outside. Clint Boyer, Eric Almirola, and Austin Dillon are on the outside, but there's still time left to see if one of them can maybe make it and clinch their spot in the round of 8. But that was your NASCAR Power Minute for this week. Matt, we're doing very good on time. What pops your tarts?
I think I saved this one. I don't know if I said it before, but if it is, I'm sure something else bothers me. So when people call you buddy, have I said this one yet on the podcast?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have?
Yeah.
Who the hell do people think they are? Call me. I got buddied again the other day by someone that I know.
Would you prefer pal?
No, it's just call me by my name. It's a lazy. It's
a movie.
Maybe once in a while. So let me think of other things that pops my tarts. You go ahead, Ryan. I wasn't sure. I had that written down. I wasn't sure if that one I said or not on a previous one, but go ahead.
So I have 2. My first one is parlays. So this week I had a 5-team parlay. My locks of the week, I had Cleveland money line, and Cleveland won. I had the New England money line, New England won. I had Pittsburgh -4, they won by a touchdown. I had Buffalo -2, they won by 3. I had Tennessee -2.5, they only won by 1 point. That's my first Pops My Tarts is parlays. And then the second Pops My Tarts is Philadelphia sports. I can't remember ever being this upset about the state of Philadelphia sports. The Flyers were a cup favorite, and then they bowed out in the second round to Glendon Negress's New York Islanders in 7 games. They look bad. The Sixers were bad. They the things that they've done over the past year, I guess a little over a year, have been very stupid. They have a stupid front office. They let Jimmy Butler go and make the NBA Finals. Stupid team. The Sixers, not the Heat. The Eagles are 0-2-1. They won a Super Bowl, and then it seemed like they just wanted to slam the window closed immediately. The Phillies, they had a lead in 49 of 60 games this year. All they had to do was win one more of them, and they would have made the playoffs. Couldn't even do that correctly. An expanded postseason year when 8 teams from each league make it. So that's what pops my tarts. It's Philadelphia sports teams. Get it together. I've had enough. So what pops your tarts?
I would have said, but you kind of hit the nail on the head, is when teams play to tie and not to win. What pops my tarts, Ryan, is I had a pretty good week, Ryan, and this segment was pretty much made for me because I complain about everything. You know what pops my tarts, and I'm not criticizing the people who have these jobs. I want to get that out on the record. Is when you say, like fill it up regular cash when you go to a gas station, right? You say fill her up regular cash, something like that, or whatever specified amount that you have. Actually, it's more just fill it up, right? Is when they don't top it off. So you have to get exact change. So, I'm not criticizing gas attendants, but it's a veteran move I've learned to round it up to $12 instead of $11.74, because then you got like 5 pennies and like a nickel in there, and that's you got change. You don't want coins. So
Man,
I guess
I'm a big fan of pumping my own gas. I really hope that comes to the state eventually.
So I guess this is a very pampered thing for me to pop my tarts about. I actually have never pumped my own gas before.
Ah,
I know how to, though, because I had to go out to Scranton last year for a game, but the fuel efficiency on my car got me there and back in one tank, which I was very surprised about because it's a 4-hour drive each way. But yeah, you're a big pump your own gas guy. Especially now with touching everything, I'd rather have the person who's been handling it all day handle it. But I will say I'm usually a keep the change guy. If there's change or like a couple extra bucks and I don't feel like I'm a big tipper. So let me say that. A lot of people don't tip gas attendants. They just take the change and go. If it's a couple bucks, I say keep it. Because a lot of times you could go into like the Wawa, get like a sandwich or something, or like a bag of chips. So they work hard out there, but I'm just little veteran move, just round it up to the next number.
just give me the option is all I'm asking. Like, maybe, listen, you don't want to get out of your car in the middle of January. I get it. I've been there. But just make a little section where the get attendants are, and make another section where if I want to get my
Well, you could just wave them
behind,
off, though. You just wave them off. Be
yeah,
like, I
but then
got it.
I feel kind of bad. It's just let me just put a self-serve section. Let me do what I need to do. No interaction, and then I'll be on
I
my way.
like the interaction. I go to I go to the Wawa on 38. Very nice gas attendants. A lot of them know me because of the fact that every time I go to work, I have to fill up my gas tank because it's so far away. So I have nice little rapport with these gentlemen. Yeah, I used to go to other gas stations to where they wouldn't really bump it up. That's where the Pops My Tarts comes from. There's one I used to go to at Monmouth. Very, very interesting fellow that I would get every day. Love gas stations though, but I'm not a big pump my own gas guy though. If I move out of the state, which I want to go, I want to eventually move to PA because it's cheaper, Ryan, much cheaper to live in Pennsylvania than New Jersey. But then I'm going to have to learn how to pump my own gas. So that's the incentive to stay in the state.
So that'll do it for this episode. We did very well on the time. I'm very proud of us. I think we finally figured it out. we'll get back to Start Bench Cut next week, but we just had a lot of sports to get through today, so we just wanted to make sure we devoted a lot of time to that. We'll get back to, we did do Pops My Tarts, so we got one segment in. But want to thank you all for listening to, I think this is episode 8 of Best Available Podcast, and we'll catch you guys again next time. Thanks for listening.